Hey guys, today I am really excited to bring you episode 119 of the Actual Fluency podcast. On the show today, I've got Quinn Taber, who's going to be talking about his experience with immersion, spending several years in the Middle East learning Arabic. And he's also going to be sharing a little bit about his language learning startup that's going to be very much revolving around immersion. So if you want more information on that, you can go to immerse.online and read more information about that. Otherwise, I encourage you to just listen to the episode and try to get more immersion into your life because I think a lot of the time immersion is simultaneously overrated and underrated. It's definitely underused, but sometimes people think that the only way to learn a language is to immerse yourself, to actually go to the country. I don't think that's true at all. I think that is a limiting belief that is actually an excuse most of the time. And sometimes it becomes a bit of a crutch when you're actually learning languages because you can learn so much with a tutor over Skype. You can do so much with textbooks, with audio programs, all this software that's been developed, all these great books. Of course, to learn how to converse in a language, you really need conversations. I mean, that's quite obvious. But I think that people can definitely do more immersions. And during the episode, we discuss a few tips and tricks on how people can do it from anywhere, and also what kind of immersion is the best? Can you do it all with immersion, or do you need to supplement with anything else? Of course, the whole episode is centered quite around today's guest's personal experiences, which I have made it sort of a strategy now for the Actual Fluency podcast. I decided back in the day that it was going to feature stories and inspiration, tips and tricks, methods, everything really. But it also had certain elements along the way that was sort of more practical and more direct, or maybe more weekly. And recently, I've kind of gone back into this idea that the episodes are mostly about stories. And yeah, the stories have patterns and topics and themes, but in really behind every lesson, I think there's a story. So I hope that I've succeeded in presenting that this week. Just a little quick shout out to the show sponsor, Glossica. If you want to try out an audio program that's based around spaced repetition sentences with a hands-off approach, with daily reps, lots of different exercises that you can use, and you get access to 50 languages, 50 plus languages, I believe. So it's perfect for the aspiring polyglots who want to triangulate some of their language skills. You can give it a try for free at tryglossica.com. And yeah, let me know what you think and enjoy the episode with Quinn Taber. And here we get started with a little question on what his background was like. Like, how did he get into languages, traveling, and foreign cultures? So let's hear what he has to say.
Predominantly Paris, but we traveled a lot. And then we moved back to California, where my mom is from, when I was in grade school. But then even through high school, college, kind of kept traveling. So went to university in Los Angeles, but studied for a year in Europe, and then spent a lot of time in the Middle East. So where am I from? Kind of everywhere, it feels like sometimes.
That's cool. That's cool. And so I guess the traveling
Yeah,
bug gave you the interest in other cultures, and I guess particularly relevant to this podcast, the languages of other cultures.
exactly. Yeah, 100%. A big one for me was actually the refugee crisis. So in 2012, 2013, I heard about what was happening with the Syrian refugees in the Middle East, and it just grabbed my heart. I didn't know what to do with it. I'm like, wait, how am I supposed to stay in these really nice places in California or France when I know about these 10 million people that are stuck in camps? They don't have food or sanitation or anything. And because I had traveled so much, it felt kind of easy. I'm like, I'll just go there. I'll spend a couple weeks there, see if I can be helpful. And that made the bug get even worse. Now I really want to stay there and not go back to California. So the first time I went, I was 19 years old. I had lived in a couple different countries, but I had never lived in a refugee camp.
Right.
So moved out, spent 5 weeks there for the summer, and then kept going back on winter break and summer through college, and then joined this big refugee organization and lived in the Middle East for the last 3 years.
Wow.
It was a long, epic adventure. Yeah.
Can imagine lots to go into there. So whereabouts did you live in different places, or was it mostly in the one place?
Yeah. So I moved first to Beirut, which is actually a pretty like Western city,
Mm.
and really enjoyed it. I lived in the kind of the western part of the city where a lot of the Americans live. Um, and this is probably the start of my, I know, the start of my language adventure. Because I had grown up traveling a ton, and particularly in French speaking countries, I had I picked up French as a kid, kind of immersively, because I went to a French school and my parents spoke French. But then when I was in Beirut, I had this problem that all my friends were having, which was we were learning Arabic in like the local kind of American school with all the other American students. And then we would go outside and try to speak with like one or two locals to actually get the conversational skills, and weren't getting anywhere.
Right.
It was so tough. So that was kind of the big intersection in my language journey. Was I thought that I was good at languages because I had grown up in these different immersive settings. I had grown up in places that spoke French, so I learned French kind of naturally, and then tried this adventure of learning Arabic. And because I don't think I really had the right methodology around it, I would spend all this time memorizing flashcards, all this time memorizing flashcards, and wasn't getting anywhere. It
Right.
was it was killing me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's a tough language, isn't
Um,
it? I mean, as an English native speaker, or most of Europe, I suppose, Arabic is a quite a different beast in many ways.
yeah, I completely agree. I know. They say that Arabic competes with Mandarin for the hardest language on earth. And I think that was part of my disappointment. Was I was always the student growing up that got really good grades. I like would work hard and study hard and then get an A and be like, oh, check that off the list. I got it. I'm good. I can move forward. And I'd memorize all the flashcards and take all these kind of classic language courses, and I'd get A's. But the conversational piece, I felt like I was missing it. And despite like getting an A on the Arabic test, when I would actually be in
Mm.
town trying to speak, it was like it was an entirely different thing. Like I had been practicing all the wrong stuff. Yes, I could get an A on the test, but the actual conversational thing, I hadn't prepared for at all.
Right. Well, it's almost like they are different things, you know.
I
Educators of the
know.
world,
That's nice.
pay attention, you know.
I know, everyone listen. Yeah. So that's it kind of began this journey of having to reconstruct how I saw languages, and thus like almost building my own method to become fluent in Arabic, not just reading and writing, but
Mm.
actually being able to have a conversation with the guy down the street. Yeah, it was this little like 2 or 3 month identity crisis of I don't think I'm getting anywhere. So I had to go back to the bottom and start over like, so how do I learn this? I thought I was good at languages. I thought this would come easy. I was able to
Ah.
do French in my sleep, but Arabic, I need to figure this out from the ground up.
Yeah, and I bet there are people listening now who's like, I've been learning Arabic for 30 years. This guy doesn't know what he's what he's getting himself into. This is a, you know, this is just the beginning, man, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think anyone that both learns Arabic, or I'm also an entrepreneur now. Anyone that signs up for those two endeavors have to be pretty, I would say, not just optimistic but naive, because it's not an easy endeavor.
Right.
But it is possible. That's my main takeaway.
Yeah. So what kind of did you have any? languages in school? Like America, obviously one of the notorious monolingual countries. Which is interesting because you got
I
the so many
know.
different cultures and immigrants, and like the languages are the family languages are still quite alive. But it seems like for a large majority of people, language classes or language success is kind of a almost a myth. Language, second language. So what was your experience in the school system? Did you get any offers even, or what was
That's
it
such a
like?
good question. Yeah, dude, that's the perfect question. I think if anything, America broke me. They made my language learning journey way too hard because, like I said, I assumed that when I got an A on the test, that meant I was fluent.
Mm,
And that's kind of how I've come to my like transformation of how I see language and like really true fluency, not the A1, A2 being able to write some sentences. But that next level, it has to happen outside the classroom.
mm.
Is I did Spanish for a year or two in school and then jumped over to French again. And I'm going to be totally honest, I felt like I was cheating a little bit on French because I had grown up there. So I got really easy A's on that one. I just kind of slipped by. Um, but that was, I think, kind of the core of my diagnosis is the reason that I wasn't able to really have these breakthroughs I wanted in Arabic years later is in America, my Spanish teacher said, "Yep, you're fluent because you've passed the first three levels of
Mm.
our classroom." And they had turned language into such an academic like subject, but I never actually like flexed my language muscles in real
Mm.
practice.
It's a
So
real
that's what
shame.
me and my buddies who, yeah, I totally
And it happens
agree.
everywhere, like in the European universities. Often people will go through, let's say, 3 to 5 years of a master's degree, and they'll know everything about the language. They'll know everything about the history. They can even cite passages from the great classics in the language, but ask them to have a normal conversation, and they just can't because it's not part of, for many, what a university degree is, which is completely completely ridiculous.
I so agree. Yeah, that's the the joke that me and my buddies have is we passed our Spanish class, but now years later, if we went down on a surf trip to Mexico, I couldn't put a sentence together.
Oh yeah, you're in
I like don't even
California.
know how to
Like
order tacos.
that's like me learning Spanish in the middle of the UK. Okay, maybe you can see some
Yeah.
limitations there, but I imagine California must be like rich in the Latin American culture, and
Oh yeah.
must be loads of Spanish speakers also. So there's really no excuse if you live in California.
I know you're calling me out, and it's deserved. I completely agree.
Well,
Yeah.
more your country. I think you do well. I think to be more encouraging to learn the other languages. I think that would be good. But what is it like in
Yeah.
America? Like, what's the language learning kind of environment like now? Because Europe, I think, or maybe because we're so many countries next to each other in different languages, I feel like it seems a little bit more normal to talk about, and people seem to have more
Yep.
languages on average. But talk us through how, like, what's your feeling in the US like now you're doing entrepreneuring in language learning as well. So how do people
Yeah.
react when you say that, or when you say, "Oh, I also know Arabic"? What kind of reactions do you get? And
Yeah. Man. That's such a good question. I think, especially Americans, but anyone that has English as their first language, it feels a little bit like a curse because everywhere you go, at least in my experience, everyone speaks English, at least a
yeah,
little bit. And
yeah,
then so when I'm in France, the French people in France that I want to practice my French with, their English is way better than my French is. So I'll
yeah.
get one or two sentences of French, and then they'll just kind of laugh at me like, "Oh, nice try," and then they respond with perfect English. I'm like, dang it, there goes my practice. So that's the sad part is I think so many of my American friends, because we've been super lucky and we've traveled a lot. So I'm right now 24 and I'm about to book a flight to visit my 50th country, and I'm so excited.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
So this summer, I'm gonna, yeah, yeah. But I think that's the hard part is for me and my buddies, we have it too easy. We go to
Mm.
Thailand and people speak English. We go to Mexico and people speak English. We go to Paris, people speak English.
But I heard a
So
lot of
it's almost like
Americans
we
don't
have
have
to put in
a
extra
passport
effort.
even. Is that true?
Ooh, that's a great question, man.
I mean, if you don't know
Oh,
it, you don't
I
know.
would.
But I feel like I heard that like one in two, like something ridiculous, didn't have a passport in the US. Even it's kind of hard to imagine people
Golly,
learning languages if they're not even interested in leaving the country for at least a week or something.
yeah, I know.
But anyway,
I
this wasn't
know.
supposed to
We
be
need.
like
I want to look it up on Google now.
this wasn't supposed to be like the doom and gloom of American language learning. But I just feel like it's not often that I have Americans
We
on
can
the
go there
show,
for a little
so
bit,
I like pounced on the on the opportunity to grill you a little bit on the status
dude.
of your
Bring it.
country's language learning. Yeah,
Bring it.
but tell me honestly, tell me a little bit more about your experience learning Arabic, because, or perhaps more about the experience living in the
Yeah,
Middle East, because that must have been some culture shock, even
yeah.
if Beirut is quite, a modern city. Like, what kind of challenges do you have adapting to it, and how did you feel your experience changing as you got better and better in Arabic?
Ooh, man, that's another great question.
If you-
Um, Beirut. I like these a lot. Beirut is a really interesting city. It's actually, so like I said, I'm about to go to my 50th country, which I'm secretly a little proud of. But Beirut is actually one of the most diverse, like cross-cultural cities on earth. They say it's been kind of the highway between the East and the West for so long. There's Americans, French, Syrian, Egyptian, even Chinese. So it's this big hodgepodge, which many was a lot of fun. That's for
Mhm.
sure.
Agree.
Like the nightlife is fun. The people are really rich. The food's great. Uh, for me, and this is kind of my unique story, is I spent the first year and a half there hanging out with predominantly Americans and Europeans, getting away with the French I knew because a lot of people speak French there. And my kind of heightened disappointment with my Arabic, it kept growing. I'm like, oh, okay, I put in another 20 hours this week. I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. I put in another 25 hours. I'm not really getting anywhere. And then I hit this breaking point about halfway through where the like disappointment of not learning Arabic and not getting conversational skills was greater than the comfort I had. So I said, dang it, I need to change something. So I moved to a different area in Jordan where no one speaks English. So I
Wow.
just threw myself in the deep end. And at that point I still didn't really have a method to it. I just knew I had to change something. And I had heard about this group of folks that are all Westerners who spoke perfect Arabic because they totally cut off their English. So they moved into Bedouin camps, into refugee camps, and lived with Arabs who didn't speak English. And
Mm.
in a couple months, they had these huge breakthroughs. And I was so envious. I'm like, all right, I'll move somewhere that doesn't have electricity or running water or kind of a downgrade in quality of life. But if it gets me speaking Arabic, it's worth it. I just got to go for it.
Wow, that's quite adventurous, I would say, for most people. I mean, you're already in quite a foreign country. You're in the other part of the world, and you're like, this isn't foreign enough.
Yeah,
So what
I
happened then?
completely
So
agree.
you went off the grid in a way. You went a little bit further
Yep.
out. And what happened then?
Yeah, it changed everything. I literally I stopped hanging out with the Americans, and I had been reading about these different really thoughtful people who believe that the only way to truly learn a language is immersion. And a lot of the kind of philosophy behind their thought process is how do you emulate the experience that a young child has learning their parents' language just by doing. Anyone that cares about languages heard it a dozen different ways and a dozen different times. Um, but the idea that in order to really engage, you have to be with people that only speak that target language. If you can, you want to be with people that are really, they use the word like compassionate or nurturing. Just like when I was little with my mom. Because when I was hanging out with other young guys and I'd make an Arabic mistake, they'd laugh at me and be like, you said a naughty word, whoops. Like, dang it. Where in these refugee camps and these Bedouin camps, I would actually hang out with the other moms because they were the ones that would treat me with all this compassion. And if I would make a
Ah,
mistake, they'd be like, "Oh, it's okay. Try saying it this way." I'm like, "Oh, all right."
ah, top
uh,
tip.
so by simulating, by simulating what these other kids were doing at a different point, this is a little embarrassing, but I literally would go hang out in the preschool. I haven't told that to many people, but that was the place that I could make mistakes and I wouldn't feel super embarrassed. I'm a kind of cocky guy. I think every guy is, that I didn't want to hurt my pride by making all these mistakes. But if I hung out with the moms and the 5-year-olds, I was good. They wouldn't make fun of me for pronouncing something.
Right.
Yeah. So I go ahead. Do you have a question? You're gonna me to keep
No,
going.
no, I was just gonna say that's you're probably adapting your environment to your level, maybe. I mean, you were kind of like a young
Yeah.
Arabic speaker
Yeah.
yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I fit in. Yeah, it was a perfect fit. So that was a big piece that I had been reading about in this immersive philosophy was be with people that are nurturing, that'll allow you to make mistakes, kind of copy what the child's experience is. And then the only other one was just do a lot of real life experiences. I felt like after taking a couple years of Arabic, I knew the technical words for business, and I kind of had reached a high level of my technical understanding, but I still couldn't order a falafel, and I still couldn't hail a cab or figure out how to find the bathroom. Um, so by just doing real life with these people and really commonplace activities, I was able to get that mastery of words that are the most used. So that was
Hmm.
another big takeaway for me is every language, it's almost like a mountain. The top 100 words in Arabic, they're used 70% of the time to
Hmm.
say I want or I need or bathroom. That's the stuff I use almost every day. To use the word economics or profit in Arabic, I don't use that very much, so I didn't use that as much.
Yeah, so what about do you feel like because you said you were doing the learning in a bit of a technical way, you were doing a bit of sort of grammar and or more bookish type stuff, maybe the type of stuff you would see at university or school. Do you feel or how do you think that benefited you when you actually went into the immersive environment? Do you feel like you could just jump into that nurturing environment you mentioned and have the same results, or do you feel like that base that you had from before really helped you accelerate? I'm just trying to, for people who are listening who obviously can't go to Beirut, probably most people, but still want to maybe
Yeah.
mimic that immersive experience. Maybe they can go to the local culture center. Then maybe there'll be fairs or festivals or even online immersion, which I'm sure we can talk about in a second. Like, how important is that background, and is immersion the end all be all? I guess that's a leading question, but I'll let you take it away.
Gosh, that's such a good one. I go back and forth. I'm sure in reality, having that base of vocabulary and grammar did help, but at the same time, there's a lot of sports metaphors in my mind because I grew up playing a lot of sports. I'm really tall, so I played basketball and volleyball. The coaches would always say, "I would rather teach a little kid how to shoot a basketball perfect when they're young instead of someone who's 15 and maybe really athletic and have to get rid of their crummy form and then rebuild it."
Hmm.
So in a way, in my mind, I had to erase a lot of the mistakes I had learned in the fancy language institute and rebuild. So it almost took 50 hours to go back down to ground level so that I could build the structure properly.
Hmm.
So where I'm at today, I'm I'm fully on board for immersion and immersion only. Obviously, it's hard for 99% of people who live in the U.S. or the U.K. where there aren't a ton of foreign languages. But I'm bought in.
Yeah, I think the internet obviously makes it possible to do sort of a pseudo immersive experience from the comforts of your own living room, but obviously that has limitations. And I don't know what I think myself. Obviously, I think immersion is great, and it's like the way to learn how to speak a language is to speak a language. Like there's no way around it. But I'm not sure what role it plays. If you go through textbooks like Teach Yourself or Colloquial or Assimil or some of these textbooks that
Yep.
probably won't teach you how to
Yep.
speak, but they'll teach you kind of a base vocabulary, kind of a base understanding of the sentence structure and stuff. I wonder how effective, like if you compare two people, one who just did immersion and one who did that little course or something, maybe let's call it an Assimil, and then uh, went to the immersion half as long. I wonder if those two people might not reach a similar area because you get those bases covered. I don't have a conclusion for this thought train here,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. For my couple Western friends who have done the same thing, who moved to Jordan and lived in these camps, because we would compare notes all the time, what we kind of decided was the immersion, the guys that only did immersion, they took off like a rocket ship. They learned really, really fast, really quick. But then there is a point, for folks that are familiar with the CEFR, the grading, once they got to maybe that B1, B2, that upper intermediate level, they actually started to hit a little bit of a ceiling because they needed to really study the grammar. So
Mm.
they took a month off and met with someone to make sure they understood the grammar perfectly and make sure they had all the kind of proper technique. But then they
Mm.
went back to the immersion, and that's what got them to the next level. Where
So
for
you do
me, I
both.
spent the first half in the classroom. Exactly. Yeah. I
But you
spent
should
that
have it, I
first
guess.
half in the classroom. Exactly. Yeah. Regardless, I think you need both. I agree.
So, I mean, you're a young person. You've been living in the Middle East. You've seen action in the camps. You've done your bit for humanity. You are really fascinated about
Yeah.
foreign languages and cultures. And you come home to California and you're like, what am I going to do next? Is that an accurate assessment?
That was 100% accurate. Yeah, I put in my 3 years, which is the contract I agreed to, and I had this really fortunate thing happen where I both really wanted to keep working on my language skills and keep helping refugees, but I also me and a couple of my best friends knew that we wanted to start a company, and we had a couple ideas, and we found the intersection. So for the last 8 months, we've been building the first ever software that will allow you to meet with a tutor online in an immersive context. So we're looking to find that middle ground. And then the fun thing, we're all young and we joke that we're hippies. We aren't actually in it for the money. So we're giving a lot of the money back to then train refugees to become online tutors around the globe so they can have employment. Um, and that's kind of that intersection. So we're building the software to help language students and online tutors do that immersive online, because technology really can make it possible, and give back and try to help refugees create employment, because that's a big need.
Hey guys, just taking a quick break from the episode to talk to you about this show's sponsor, which is Glossica. I'm super excited to have Glossica on board. I really reputable and trusted language course producer. They're producing courses in many, many languages. I think they're over 50 to choose from at the moment, and you get access to all of them with a single subscription. And if you want to give it a try, you can go to tryglossica.com in one word, and yeah, get started for free, see if it's anything for you. What I really like about Glossica is the hands-off approach to the learning. So they give you a certain number of repetitions you need to do every day, and each sentence in those repetitions has some grammar elements that will mean that you slowly understand the language in context, and you build a repertoire of sentences that you can sort of refer to when you get a similar pattern of sentence in the future. So that's really cool, and there's some other language learning tools you can use on Glossica. They have a few different games, a few different ways of revising. That's not just the main reps, but that's by far my favorite feature, that you can just kind of sit back, let the software do the repetition for you, and then do one segment a day. It takes like 15 minutes, maybe half an hour if you want to do a little bit extra, and you're well on your way to rapid progress. So go to tryglossica.com, give it a try, say how much you like them for sponsoring the show, and hopefully they'll come back for the next season. Right. So that's kind of a bit like a positive anarchy in a way, or positive. No, not anarchy. What am I talking about? Positive activism in a way was the word I was looking for, which is not too dissimilar from
Yeah.
for what the previous episode was about, which is also a person who was doing it. Some changes for basically for the greater good at the same time. But how did you like? There's a lot of tutoring online. There's a lot of websites that offer tutors. There's a lot of people doing it independently. There's so many platforms and websites. And what made you, or I mean, you don't have to obviously spoil your all your upcoming features and launches and stuff, but like, what did you see that was missing that you could do better, or that wasn't even being done before, that made you go for this particular topic for your business?
That's another great question. I actually, without naming any names of the websites that I found tutors on, when I moved back, that's the first thing I did was log into a couple of the famous websites, find a tutor, and it didn't scratch the itch I had from being overseas because I
Mm.
really wanted to do real life, to have these practical, kind of visceral experiences, because that's where I learned the best. I learned when I was picking things up and doing things, not just talking. Um, so that's how I asked the question: how do we create that experience using technology? Two of my best friends that I started this company with are from Silicon Valley and are really good at tech, which is a nice
That's an
plus.
advantage, yeah.
And when we would talk about it, they would say, exactly, yeah. They would say technology will allow people in a couple of years to be able to do exactly what you did, Quinn, overseas. Let's start doing that today. So we actually, using photos and videos and these like almost picture books, kind of like wordless picture books, you can meet with a tutor and go through these a ton of different scenes that we've created. So we have an online scene for you walking down the Champs-Elysees in
Mm.
Paris, ducking into a cafe, ordering a coffee and a baguette. And it's kind of almost like a cartoon, a series of pictures that you go through.
Ah, okay.
And then the whole time you're on a video call, so you can see the face of your tutor, but you're going through this experience. And when you find a new word, you can write it on right on the cartoon. It's really fun. So if you want to write the word, uh, let's see, or if we want to do Arabic, if you see the word chair and you forgot what it is, you can ask the tutor, "Oh, what was that?" And because you're both seeing the cartoon on your computer screen and you can both see each other's mouse moving around, the tutor will move the mouse over to the chair, click it, and then write down for you, "Kirse," and then they'll do the little translation, chair. And they can even record the pronunciation. That's a hard one for me. I always suck at pronunciation. And I hear them say it properly so that then I can go back at the end of the day or a week later and review and see, oh, on that scene, ordering at the French cafe, I learned these 20 words. Here's
Hmm.
the pronunciations I can go back and listen to. We even have fun little games for you to review. So little quiz games of, okay, which one was the Kirse? And you have to click on the chair. Uh, so that's today how we try to construct immersive experiences for the online tutor.
So it's a bit like so it's kind of like role playing in a sense, but like in a new modern way, not just imagination. You can actually see something going on in front of you.
Exactly. Yeah. For me, the big one, I learned so much quicker when I had all of my senses engaged. That's something that's
Mm.
kind of part of how I recognize I learn the fastest. So if I could see something and hear it and touch it and like really engage my entire mental capacity, I would remember it forever. So that's why
Mm.
we really want to create these experiences that engage everything or really kickstart the memory.
Yeah, you know what you should do? I mean, this is an incredibly ambitious idea, but you could even have, you can have the tutors in different like green screens, and they could have like props.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great?
Oh, that would be so cool. I'm down.
It's like, welcome to
That's
the
what
cafe.
I will.
That's proper immersion.
I could not agree more. That's what our plan is actually, and it's not a secret, but we're kind of keeping it on the hush on the lowdown. Is in a year or two, once we get enough people using it, we're going to create an option for virtual reality.
Mm.
And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's the headset that lets you really feel like you're in Paris and like actually seeing everyone moving around. Meeting your tutor there will be a lot of
And that would
fun.
be
Even more fun than the cartoons we're building right now.
Yeah, that would be insane if you could do something productive with that. I've seen some not so productive, AI kind of projects, but if you could somehow get that technology working in sync and you can actually be there, because I've heard of people using stuff like Google Maps already without the augmented
Yep.
reality component, just using like the pictures, just saying, okay, direct me to the fountain or whatever. And that's a way to kind of learn if you're a dedicated teacher. But if you could be put into the environment and you film the scenes with like an AI camera, that would be pretty sick actually,
Yep.
because I think the number one deterrent to immersion must be the practicality and the travel costs and the like, okay, I'm in Denmark,
Exactly.
how do I go to France, and so your USP is going to be how to make the most realistic immersion experience online.
I so agree.
So
And
do
I think it's kind of twofold. Or go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if the people, the tutors or the teachers you're going to have on the platform, are they going to be doing a program that you decide, or are you just going to offer the platform, then it's up for the teacher what they're going to do with it? Or is it going to be is it going to be your thing, or is it just a platform where every teacher can decide how ambitious they get or how much they do?
Yeah. Yeah. That's another good one. Right now we have about 1,000 of these different experiences that we've constructed. And that's all that we want. Literally our mission as a project and a group of friends that are working on this is to just make this tutoring experience so fun and engaging and way easier for the tutors. Because this way we can control, we'll create all the curriculum for you. We have all the reporting on how many words you learned. So it's kind of this decentralized platform. So if you're the tutor, Chris, you can choose, hey, here's the menu of 1,000 experiences. Let's do the cafe today, and then the airport tomorrow, and then checking into the hotel or the classroom and all these different things. And you can cater to your student whatever they need.
I see. So when are you planning on launching this? When is it going to go live? And do tell people where to find out more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go live June 1st. So we're 16 days out
Wow.
from the day that we're recording this. Yeah. Our right now it's just on our website. So if you go to immerse.online, so it's not .com, .online, and then in probably 6 months, we're going to launch the app for both your computer and your cell phone and everything else.
Cool, cool. Well, I think that was a great little rundown of what could be an amazing service. I mean, as any new upstart, you still have a lot to prove, of course, before we call it the new Hail Mary of language learning. But why don't we just take a couple of minutes just winding down this episode to give me your top 5 quick language learning tips for anyone sitting out there. You can choose whatever topic you want, whether it's specific to Arabic or just general advice, motivation, grammar, whatever you want. Just give me your five quick best tips on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I know 5's a good number. Over the course of us being on this journey trying to create a software, I've put more thought and research into language learning than I ever thought I would. It's been a lot of fun. And in the process, we've codified, we've created the immersive method and kind of the step-by-step rules. A lot of them start around immersion, choosing to immerse as soon as possible. That's the first thing. Just like sports, the best thing you can do is just start, even if it's not perfect. And I think a lot of the things are things I've already mentioned. Start as soon as possible. Try to pursue as lifelike of a conversation as possible. My big takeaway after my years of Arabic acquisition is I felt like, if you use the sports metaphor, I was training for football, but I needed to be able to compete in basketball. So I was training for reading and writing, but I needed the conversational skills. So it felt like this divide, and they were kind of a dichotomy, like two different things. And the beauty of just doing these real life conversations is you'll actually get the most important and the most relevant words right away. I think I had learned so many words that were in this like third or fourth tier of importance, not really that crucial. So maybe because it would take me 5 or 10 minutes per word to memorize, because I would do all the games, I would put it in Anki, I would review it 5 times, and I would never actually use the word. Like, yes, it's good, but just start with that base level mastery. And if you can get the first 200 to 300 Arabic words through immersion, you'll be amazed how quickly you'll be able to just follow the basic structure of a conversation. The other things that we're really focused on is, like I said, using as many senses as possible. I think I really hurt myself by just doing flashcards. All I had was a piece of paper, and it would say kirse on one side of the paper and chair on the other. And I wouldn't even say it out loud. I would just stare at it and turn it around and then put it on the deck. And I would move on to the next word.
Yeah, I've done that.
Once I could really, once I really like picked up the kirse, the chair, saw it, touched it, heard myself saying kirse or hearing a tutor, we call it our memory threads. When all you use is your eyes, it's just one thread to memorize something. If you can employ all your senses, it's almost like 5 or 6 different threads, because when you're in conversation, you don't have a minute to remember something. You need this instinctual, you need to be able to grab the word in a millisecond. Yeah. So the more threads you have, the better. And then the last one, so I think these are 4 tips, not 5, is I'm a huge advocate for spaced repetition or spaced method repetition. I know I mentioned Anki, which a lot of our users have heard of. So that's another piece that, this is a little self-promoting, but our software does, is we have the reminders so that over the course of, if you finish a lesson on day 0, we will remind you to come back and review and interact with those words and play games with them and really be engaged so that you see them on day 2 and day 5. And we've got our own kind of rhythm to do that, because in my mind, until I've seen a word 5 times, it's going to be stuck in
Sure.
my short-term memory.
Yeah.
Once it's that 5th time, it's like this magical thing. It'll kick in the long term. So that's probably my last one that for me has been just a life changer, is making sure I see it 5 times spaced out really well.
Cool. Well, that's some great tips also, and so the last thing is well, and people should definitely check out Immerse.online after June 1st. So I guess they can sign up now for the waiting list, or a little bit of a teaser there. What's next for
Exactly.
you as a for your personal language learning? Do you have any new projects on the cards, or any big sort of plans coming for yourself?
That's, yeah, absolutely. For one, I'm excited to review my Arabic because I've now lived back in the US for 8 months and I really miss it. So I'm going to be our biggest customer on Immerse. I'm probably going to be on it 2 or 3 times a day. We joke that this whole team, we've been working on building it, but it's all selfish. It's just for me. If no one else uses it, we'll still be happy. My Arabic will be better. But after that, I've been really excited to learn Hebrew. I
Mm,
know that's another hard language. And I'm going to do an experiment with myself, which is I want to see if I can learn Hebrew only through immersion.
mm,
It's going to be a
interesting.
big game, but I'm going to try to do it without spending a single minute with those darn boring flashcards, and see if I can learn all of Hebrew just on Immersed Online.
Try and well, be sure to document it as much as possible, because I would be interested to see how that goes as well. Because like we talked about a little bit earlier, how much do you actually how far can immersion alone get you? And I guess your contention right now is that it can get you as far as any other method, but we'll see. Yeah, be sure to get a lot of data for that. That would be cool to check out.
Yeah, no, I'll probably be blogging. I'm sure it'll be hard, just like every language, but I'll uh, I'll let everyone know how it goes.
There's no such thing as an easy language. Even the easiest are tricky to learn, just because of the mental processes involved, I feel like. So I don't think people should ever kid themselves that learning a language is ever a simple or easy task. But obviously, with your experience, maybe that can offset the difficulty of Hebrew a little bit, and get you maybe more instinctually what sentences and words are important, so you can maybe stick them in your brain faster when you hear them. But either way, keep us posted on that. That would be cool to follow up on. And with that, I think
Yeah,
it's time
of course.
to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for reaching out as well. This is all the result of an email asking, "Yo, wanna do an episode?" And it happened. So if anyone's sitting out there listening and you have a great language learning story, or maybe you have an interesting startup, or you're changing the game in some sense somewhere, do please drop me an email, and we can get it started. So Quinn, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks so much, Chris. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, time flew by.